Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming. And this session is part of the SEAMEO University Tsukuba Symposium and the breakout two, I believe, or breakout one. It's talk about longitudinal study and impact assessment in educational research. I'm Arif Hidayat from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. Well, the outline will talk about
recording in progress.
That is longitudinal study and impact assessment, an introduction, especially in education, and then the relation of longitudinal study and impact assessment. And last but not least, I would like to show you how we have been doing case study on longitudinal study and impact assessment in lesson study for learning community. Back to the first speaker in the morning, he mentioned about one of the posters of the International Platform School as learning community, and that's one of the part of the group. Right, just a small literature review that longitudinal study is a research that is considered longitudinal study when it examines data over an extended period to track changes, trends, or patterns over time. There is no fixed minimum duration, but usually in education, it starts from 8 to 10 years, which is quite different in medicine or any other field. And from 2 books or 3 books, according to the picture, a longitudinal study typically involves multiple data collection point over time, tracking the same variables, and assessing changes over time. I strongly recommend those 3 books, especially the book on the applied longitudinal data analysis. Right. And these are some longitudinal studies in educational field, case of Indonesia. Number 1, it talks about effect of education and on depression. And number 2, focusing on stunting, which is about 8 years. And then number 3, increasing teacher attendance in remote elementary school. Surprising. This research not focusing on student attendance, but teacher attendance. Consider that the area is very remote in Papua of Indonesia. And example number 4 is a longitudinal diary study of novice teacher professional identity. Even though 8 until 10 years, but in case of Indonesia, not many longitudinal study which covers that the period of time more than 7 years. And for the impact assessment, I referred a lot to 2 very popular books, that is Assessing Impact and Teaching and Learning. It is systematic approach used to evaluate the effects or consequences of a policy, program, projects, or intervention. And in the education, for the impact assessment, assess changes in educational access, quality, and learning outcomes. For example, is how the effectiveness of teacher training programs on student performance. That's kind of the impact assessment. Well, this short session, and I believe it's going to be followed by discussion, we might see how the relation between longitudinal study and impact study. So what we got from the data collection over time, tracking students' progress, tracking the effectiveness and policy changes, it might give a series for the impact assessment. So longitudinal studies and impact assessment are closely related because this LS or longitudinal study provides the data methodology needed for conducting a comprehensive of the impact assessment. For example, previous slide talked about longitudinal study on teacher attendance in Papua, Indonesia. So this study can be used to conduct an impact assessment of an intervention program aimed to improving teacher presence in school over 5 or 6 or 7 years. So that's kind of the short relation between longitudinal study and impact study. Now, for this one, I would like to say the last theoretical background. why longitudinal studies are essential for impact assessment, we consider 4 aspects, such as capture long-term effects, and then continuous monitoring, intervention, distinguish correlation and causation, which is different, and then provides robust data for decision-making. That's kind of the reason why longitudinal studies are essential for impact assessment. Now, the study we discussed today, that is from the philosophical understanding in education, that we believe longitudinal efforts to improve schools can be part of a long-term struggle to create a more equitable society through new values finding. We believe having longitudinal times of the school improvement, we might find new values. And in case of Indonesia, which we start the reform in 1998, democracy at its various level can be defined as a new value for a society. So we moved back in 1998, 1997, when Indonesia start to find new value, and having times goes on now 2024, we might see whether we can get this value, and then longitudinal study can trace what kind of the value have we got after we pass through a democratic situation in politics and then come to the democratic situation in the classroom. So this is kind of the another background from Paulo Freire, which is very popular pedagogy of oppressed. That is, because of pressure on students to achieve high academic scores, teachers maintain an undemocratic level of control over the classroom. And this is what we believed occurred in the beginning of 1998, that correlated with Freire, that calls on educators to aggressively challenge unequal power arrangement in the classroom and society. So we assumed that teacher control creating students' dependency in the lesson, but professor control in the teacher professional development, it creates teachers' dependency. So this one is kind of the put into relation. The way University of Teacher Training train teachers, it brings the way teachers treat their students. And we took, actually it's about 200 videos. And then the research question is, after a long-term effort, in what extent that learning community activities provide new values for teachers and students learning? And then we put a study of school at Sumedang district with learning community activities initiative starting from 2006, from 2008, 2016, 2020, and then 2023. Across those years, some years are complete in every 3 or 4 months. Some years are just 2 or 3 months. But basically, we trace in almost every single year since 2008. Since the limitation of time, I will show you what we got in the beginning of the 2006. Sorry, I think I said yes. Yeah, I think after this one, or it's up to you.
Because the concept like LC activities, can you define it?
Oh, it's kind of the learning community. Learning community is a part of the teachers gathered together and then sharing about the lesson and then reflects about students' learning. Sorry. Sorry, Bu.
No.
Yes, or we might call this one is maybe in the new term is COMBEL or komunitas belajar or learning community. Oh, so I think I have to connect again. Oh, how to connect again? Yeah. were there any comments, or should I just keep continue first? Oh, okay, let me just keep continue first. So from the 2006 video learning, we got a junior secondary school in grade, and they learn about mathematics, especially about statistics. Briefly, we found that the lesson is about like this. This is the position of the students, table, teacher, and whiteboard, as you can see on the picture. And this is they try to create something like this. And what teachers done in this lesson is students read definition from previously, and then mention student to step ahead and holding a numbering of card, kind of the numbering of card. And this is the position of the students learning with the teachers and students, which is cannot see on the picture. Another student solved the question about how to determine the mean, a concept of a statistic. Standing student could not see written on the back. And then this step is repeated for the next two, for the concept of median and then modus. Median modus means kind of a concept inside statistics. What really happened next was students transfer the answer to the whiteboard and then writing to the book about 15 minutes. So we start to analyze that. Let's imagine there is a blue line. There is a blue line represents dependency of attention and then learning direction. We plot as shown in the diagram, that one. Blue line cannot be seen, of course. And even though the written answer done by students on the whiteboard, it seems that the line still purely by centralized to one person in the center, which is teacher. Then the activity continue with the group discussion, which is very common in Indonesia. Students start to work together about 10 minutes, which is higher possibility for the collaboration. But clarification to finding right answer rather than right concept, to find correct answer rather than correct concept, somehow breaks discussion focus in the group. So group decision return with dialogue process and so on without relying to the teacher. But when teachers moving around and then keep talking, so let group interaction, whatever the pattern and quality indicated by orange lines. This one indicated that students interaction each other. Yeah. So this is represent new dependency and then learning direction when they're doing in the group sessions. And this lesson continued, and the relation was not discussed, but the lesson focusing on the what is your result and then show on the whiteboard. And then it takes all the rest of the lesson. So chance for strengthen or wider the relation, the orange line, is covered by should report in front of the classroom. So this is blue lines, new dependency and the direction of orange lines slightly disappear. What I mean is this one slightly disappeared. So there was initiative to create collaboration and a new dependency across students, but the lesson patterns make it disappear eventually. That's from the 2000 and back previously. And then in the post-lesson discussion, this is not about students' interaction, but more on the teacher's interaction. This is the position of the post-lesson discussion or reflection. And when I put a map, it is like this. The speaking teacher, let's say black star, the blue one, it's kind of the senior teachers, and this is university professor, and this is principal. When speaker is a reflection by teacher, which is a junior teacher, this is the position. But when the speaker is reflection by university professor, so he moved from this position to here, that position is kind of the change. People start to align the position, becoming lectures format. So if junior teacher said, it's kind of the, okay, not really necessary to be put into attention, but if the professor said, it's kind of the, okay, let's put into a very serious attention. So John Dewey, I really like what he said about the learning community, that university professor is an expert who is responsible for organizing experience so that teachers learn content and pedagogical skill and appreciation for democratic classroom. So that's many, many years ago. Then this activity with an equal power relationship, which is hierarchy, as if the university professor is the highest and the junior teacher is the lowest. And we move to the, still in the 2016 video lesson, that is the reflection, almost 2 hours. And then in the next, sorry, I think this is 2006. Yeah, sorry, just to make sure, 2006. And then in the next 10 years, 2016, we plot the video in the same school with the same learning group. And the situation is quite little bit changed in terms of the reflection. The reflection position is no longer that university professor is becoming the superlative, but it is in the blended in the one dialogue. And then it's spent about 2 hours for planning, and the situation is becoming more liquid. And smaller gap among teachers, principals, and university professors. And regarding the lesson, the situation is quite different, that the lesson is not opened by definition, but opening by divining questions from a phenomena or river style. And individual talks with group setting, there are some similarities, but there is wider possibility of blue lines and arguing with teachers on display. So we saw dependency to teacher get weaker, but new dependency and learning direction among students are becoming wider and even stronger. So we saw that the activity of creating democratic classroom, teachers must learn to listen to students' voices. And then we found that a lot. So the line is getting stronger in the next 10 years. And regarding teacher reflection, the dialogue is more liquid. And then this position, what we found 10 years ago, now changing, becoming more liquid. This is a senior teacher, this is the principal. And from the dialogue, they start to learn that democratic society involves combination of individual rights and initiatives. Then we jump up into 2023 when the situation is much better, and then we see how students learning, which is more deep on the how students thinking. In the previous lesson, teachers do not put problem, and also see how this problem becoming a common step or foundation. What we call is basic step for the lesson, and also teachers creating something much better to create collaboration between the high, low, and mid, which is called jumping tasks, and also sharing tasks. In the previous 5 years, and in the previous 15 years, even schools do not put that the lesson should be managed into sharing tasks and jumping tasks. But back in 2023, the situation is much better, especially in the designing the lesson, how students should experience sharing tasks and then come to the jumping tasks. Previously, the lesson put how the lesson start not by definition, but by questioning. And then after 16 years, it's going to be different level in the students' learning. And also in the teachers and teacher educator learns, the way they reflect is no longer procedural. It's no longer about a rigid situation, but it's kind of a warm dialogue. This is university professor, this is principal, and this is junior teacher. Right, and continue, sorry, I have to take, and then continue regarding post-lesson discussion, the reflection is kind of to be more dialogues rather than one person said, other people listening. It is to be more blended dialogue. It's kind of more relation concept and student thinking that's not dominated by a certain side. So finally, it is essentially need longitudinal study in terms or in order to picturing impact. When the questions comes after a long-term effort in one extent, thus learning community using lesson study activities provide new values. We cannot say new values maybe in 1 or 2 months, but after 16 years, we finally found new values. And the new values is diffusion of knowledge. Let's imagine that we have craft knowledge of teachers and then theoretical knowledge in educational research. At the beginning, craft knowledge always becoming recipient from the university professors. And then they try to be equal and then colleague each other, but actually this is not colleague each other. It should be diffusion of knowledge. So we found, having seeing many videos and experience in the same location, that learning community provides diffusion of knowledge. And if this diffusion of knowledge happens, then we might create more equity, which is affecting to the sense of teachers to improve students' learning dependency and direction in more democratics. So while teacher educators change the treatment to be more diffusion of knowledge, then teacher put the students to be more equity and then sense of learning. And this is becoming one of the university side right here. Come to the teacher, teacher come to the students, and then when diffusion of knowledge occurs, the result of the teachers and students in the classroom becoming reverse innovation to improve learning community activities even in a university. Well, since the limitation of time, and then we might have some space for the discussion, I think that's for the introduction about longitudinal study and impact assessment in terms of what we have been done regarding lesson study in one district starting from 2006 come to the 2023. Thank you so much. And if you have any comments or you have any questions or discussion, you are most welcome. Yes.
The impact is long term.
It is.
We can see the impact in long term.
It is.
What is the action before the impact?
Exactly. Say again.
Initiative. What is the aim?
Okay. What is the treatment then? Yes. What is the treatment? There are. Yes.
How this learning community activity? How this learning community established at the beginning?
Right. Thank you so much. And let me come back to the slide, which this slide tells a lot about how in the beginning we create a learning community. This one. Yeah. This is at the beginning of the JICA working together with universities, introduce teacher professional development. So we follow what arranged by JICA, and then we go to the school, and then we listening each others, and then we start to practice lesson study. So during those years, is there any treatment? Actually, there were. But in our longitudinal study, we just try to capture the changes with more focusing on the same aspects. That is, aspect in the teacher learning and an aspect in the students learning. How changes in the students learning in the classroom, and then how changes the relation among teachers, especially in the post-lesson discussion. These changes will influence the students learning in the classroom. Yes.
Yes, so just to drill down a little bit more on that.
Yes.
So lesson study is the approach you're taking. What were you trying to actually change in the classroom? Was it deliberately to make classrooms more democratic or to introduce problem-based learning? What was the overarching goal? Lesson study was seen to be an approach to try and get to. Is there some change in the curriculum, or trying to understand the focus?
Let me show you this. Hold on. This one. Here we go. We experienced that we from university side try to control teacher act, and then teachers becoming dependency to us. And then when they begin controlled by us and then becoming dependency to us, it brings influence in the way they conduct the lesson in the classroom basis or in the daily basis. In the daily basis is they control the class and finally creating students dependency. So if we change our treatment, not by controlling the TPD or teacher professional development, then we believe teachers becoming not dependency. It looks like the relation is we are superlative and then teachers is becoming our subordinates. Then after 16 years, we believe that this interaction should be not like this. It should be diffusion of knowledge. When this is becoming diffusion of knowledge, teacher is less control and then students is dependency not to the teachers, but dependency to the new dependency each others as a small blue lines.
So just to follow up on that.
Yes.
So on an earlier slide, you talked about looking at intended and unintended consequences.
Right.
And so just trying to tease out, when you started at the beginning, you designed all of the work you did to try and reduce teachers' dependency, or you did all this nice work on lesson study, and as a result, you noticed it was an unintended consequence.
Right.
That teachers were less, teachers gave students more autonomy, or however you want to phrase it. I think it's interesting because on a long project like that,
Right.
we don't always go in at the beginning really knowing what's going to happen, and we come out and we go, oh, actually, that's really good.
Yeah.
How did that work?
Yes. Very interesting. Thank you so much. The fact is, native professors is trying to control. It's very native. And then we follow out. How to change from this one? We come back to reflecting the classroom. When we reflect the classroom in the way of providing change in the way we control teachers, then this cycle can be done. So which one is intended and which one is unintended? Yeah. Right. Students' dependency to teacher is unintended. It is found through our lesson observation, which is a huge. And then teachers come to us. That is intended because of the program. But the way we deliver to guide teachers, that is also intended. So at the beginning, when we university lecturers come to the school, we are looks like, oh, you are university professor. What you want to say? We are going to listen and we're going to do what you said. So it is kind of the we control them. That is unintended, which is naturally happened, which is, I don't know, start from where. But let's change with the more diffusion of knowledge. Technically, we start to listening teachers, technically, and then get many inspiration, not from our university, but many inspiration from artifacts of the students' learning previously. So we show not evidence from the university, this is the theory, but we show this is evidence from your classroom, and then let's discuss about this to improve the next. So if yes, please.
Just a question.
Yes.
It's a good study. Did you leave the teachers, like the schools, and whether the teachers continue the learning community afterwards? Because that's always concern. Like after somebody is no longer facilitating the learning community, how long will they still keep the learning community?
Exactly. Yes. So that's why this data is very special only in Sumedang districts, because the we, not only us, actually many parties influence the governments, and then the governments being convinced to continue this TPD year by year. If no backup from the governments to be being convinced, but this is a local government, not a central government. We as university professor come to the government a lot and a lot just to convince, continue this TPD. Yeah. So yes, I have to say yes, that this program should be supported by whom, and then many schools doing like this is by self-initiatives.
So is it by the school principals or
By
the
school
teachers
principal.
themselves?
Yes,
It's something,
yes, it's school principal. Yes, by school principal.
yeah, because if the principal says so, they'll do it.
It is.
But I wonder if there's no one telling them, would they do it?
Yes, and the situation is how to convince principal, and then the principal after her or after him being
Yeah,
convinced
right.
again and again. That's because when we dealing with them in diffusion of knowledge rather than instruction, it's becoming, oh, I feel this is good for me. I'm not being student of you. I'm being to be more important person, and every single person is protagonist.
Have you encountered any teachers saying that that could be an extra load for them, like after the long hours of teaching? They
That could be, pardon
an
me?
extra load for
Oh,
them.
extra load.
Yeah. Are they all affirmative with this initiative?
This is about the frequency of the activities. We're doing only once a month. Yes, once a month. No. It means in one semester, we're only doing 3 or 4. Because one semester is 4 months effectively. Yeah, once a month. And then in that once a month, we come in the morning and then they do this one after students going home.
Like how long? Because that's always our concern in the local context.
It is.
Getting them involved. And so do you give any incentives for the teachers?
No. That's because school have their own budget for the TPD. They don't leave their school, so they don't need more transportation. They don't need it, but we need it. So that's why we propose a research budget from donor. But for teachers, they don't need it. They're working at school. This lesson study occurred in the classroom.
One school, yeah.
One school. Yes, Mr. Alex. Yes, Mr. Billy. Oh, time's up. Yeah. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you so much indeed. Right.
Setup, it so lends itself to when something in the new innovations coming in.
Right.
We've already got teachers who are used to working together in this way. No one has the expertise. You can learn together. When you want to start bringing technology in, when you've got these sorts of learning communities,
Right.
you have a really important foundation for how you can support at scale. Teachers begin to learn the new technologies. Really do.
So far, what we experienced, once upon time, we put or inserting new technology, not in particular subject, but in way of how people access this activity. So we're creating streaming lesson study. So this activity is videotape. Yes, that's right. Especially in the pandemic session. Yes, especially in the pandemic. Yeah, right. Okay. Right. Thank you so much. I believe time is up. And then thank you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Recording stopped.